We do have Brandy Melissa wants to come and testify. While we got a lull in the action here, we do have some a letter that was sent in that asked that we this is on 14, that we distribute this to the committee members. If staff can pass these letters out and make them a part of the record. Hello, Brandy.
Good morning.
You want to give us your testimony?
Chairman Morris, Vice Chairman Abraham, members of the committee. The last time I testified before you, I pushed through a seizure to help strengthen penalties for strangulation. Today, I'm speaking against medical advice because we are failing victims who are no longer able to speak for themselves. There's a belief that most people caring for infirmed loved ones are themselves infirmed. That's not always the case. In East Baton Rouge, we've had able-bodied adults let vulnerable family members die in conditions no one should endure. One woman in Clinton literally melted into a couch, neglected by her healthy, respected parents. That's not caregiving, that's cruelty. I know what caregiving looks like because I did it. On May 21st, 2016, my mom fell and was rushed to the ER. That fall uncovered 3 brain aneurysms caused by years of domestic abuse. Doctor said she wouldn't make it through the night. I reminded them that they were talking about a woman who raised a child doctors had already given up on. 17 days later, she walked out of that hospital. For the next 18 months, I was her full-time caregiver. I turned her to prevent bed sores. I protected her, preserved her dignity every single day. And I did that all with only one side of my body functioning due to medical effects of the abuse she endured while pregnant with me. But I never made excuses. I had love, knowledge, and responsibility. And when I needed help, I asked and it came. On Thanksgiving Eve 2017, her aneurysms ruptured. The long-term effects of trauma finally took her from me. I miss her every day, but I live with peace, not guilt, because I gave her care she deserved. That's why I struggle to feel sympathy for able-bodied people who leave their loved ones to suffer and die. If I could do what I did while facing significant physical limitations, so can they. And if they choose not to, they should be held accountable. This bill ensures that when a person with infirmities from abuse dies from abuse or neglect, the justice system treats that death with the seriousness it deserves. It closes a fatal loophole and protects the most vulnerable among us. The administration says crime victims matter, but every year one of the top budget priorities to cut is the very services like Faith House that help victims survive after escaping death's door. If crime victims truly matter, we wouldn't need this bill. Representative Cox could be up here talking about how Gretna has the best parades in the state because it did my whole childhood. But instead, he's fighting to make sure infirm victims don't die without justice. We also call ourselves a pro-life state, but that principle must go beyond birth. Life with infirmities deserves the same protection as life in the womb. And to those who feel compelled to take extreme measures in the name of duty, I urge you to use your vote to protect life, not to deepen the wounds of those already carrying pain. Choose a path that upholds dignity, not one that perpetrates harm. This is your opportunity to put principle into practice and ensure no victim is forgotten. I respectfully urge you to pass this bill. Thank you. And for those who don't know, this was me and my mom a year before she passed.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you for your advocacy. I do have a quick question. Mr. Alleman, you talked about that this definition of cruelty to persons with infirmities, that's been limited by the Supreme Court, you said, to direct acts of negligence?
Yes, sir. The Louisiana Supreme Court said while negligence-based cruelty can be the predicate for murder, it can't be negligent supervision. The State v. Small case was a situation where a mother left their children unsupervised in the house and they started a fire and tragically passed away. And the Supreme Court said while a more direct act of neglect like malnourishment might be enough for murder, they were going to put a limiting construction such that if it's just negligent failure to supervise, we can't use it as a predicate for murder.
I mean, first degree murder is a capital offense.
It is, yes, sir.
And so, you know, I don't want to execute anybody for negligence.
Sure. And to address your concern on that, Mr. Chair, for first-degree murder, specific intent to kill or inflict harm is always required.
Okay.
It's just for second-degree murder that you don't have to have the intent to kill or inflict great bodily harm. But first-degree, it's always an element.
Okay, so that doesn't change that.
Yes, sir. First-degree murder is basically underlying felony plus intent, whereas second-degree murder is either intent or felony.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
the intent part's always there.
first
Senator
degree, yes,
Barrow
sir.
does have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for asking that question and getting that cleared and clarified. I do want to thank Brandy. It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you the entire session, and we certainly have missed seeing you coming and advocating. I really want to reemphasize the importance of your testimony as it relates to those with infirmities, and just having the real-life testimony and someone to speak to that issue, I think, is extremely important. So I just wanted to commend you on doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Barrow.
And present in opposition and would like to speak, Meg Garvey. Ms. Garvey.
Thank you, Chairwoman Megan Garvey, on behalf of Louisiana Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers in opposition to the bill. Once again, my opposition is very narrow. I obviously am concerned with protecting people with infirmities and anybody that lives in a vulnerable situation like that. Our concern here is that when oftentimes people who are caretakers for their family members, right, are sometimes they also have infirmities, sometimes they're elderly, et cetera. And so I am concerned about letting something that does not actually have the requisite intent to be a murder rise to that level here. I think that the story that we heard, while horrifying and terrible, would be eligible to be charged possibly as a manslaughter. And in that charge, there is a lot of room to fashion remedies that take into account the particular instance of what's going on with that person, what their intent was, et cetera. And so I do think that this is pushing things into the category of murder. They're not necessarily punishing somebody that has what we would consider the requisite mens rea to commit a murder. So that's my narrow objection on this. Thank you.